When the James Webb Telescope captured its latest deep-field image, scientists expected to glimpse the universe's infancy. Instead, they saw something that should not exist. Galaxies too old, too massive, and too organized appeared where physics says there should be none. The deeper Webb looked, the more the laws of the cosmos began to unravel. It began quietly, just another deep-field scan in the endless search for our beginnings. The James Webb Space Telescope drifted in the cold silence, its golden mirrors drinking the darkness beyond time. Scientists had chosen a small, forgotten patch of sky, a place so empty it was nicknamed the Void. They expected to find faint, primitive galaxies, mere smudges of newborn light still trembling from the universe's first breath. But when the first image came through, the control room fell into silence. On their screens bloomed a vision that defied every law written since the dawn of physics. The empty sky was crowded, galaxies upon galaxies, spiraling, glowing, ancient beyond measure. Their shapes were too refined, their light too mature. It was as if Webb had photographed a universe that had already lived, aged, and died, long before our own was even born. First, disbelief reigned. Researchers combed through the data, convinced there must have been a calibration error, a reflection, a fault in the software. Every pixel was examined, every photon retraced. But the numbers remained consistent. The redshift, the cosmic measure of distance and time, was unmistakable. These galaxies existed at the very edge of the observable universe. Yet they looked billions of years too old. In hushed tones, physicists began whispering the unthinkable. The timeline of creation itself might be fractured. Perhaps time had not flowed as smoothly as we believed. Perhaps something or someone had tampered with its path. Outside, the telescope continued to gaze into the void, unaware of the chaos it had unleashed below. Every new image that arrived seemed to deepen the paradox, the early universe behaving like a veteran of 1,000 cosmic lifetimes. Somewhere in that ancient light, the first questions of existence began to tremble again, fragile and unanswered. The universe was no longer a story we understood. It had become a riddle staring back at us from the dark. How could galaxies older than the universe even exist? In the days that followed the discovery, disbelief slowly gave way to dread. As astronomers across the world began charting the coordinates of those impossible galaxies, an unsettling pattern emerged, one that could not be dismissed as coincidence. The galaxies were not scattered at random, as the cosmos should be. They were aligned, perfectly. Each cluster followed a sweeping arc across billions of light-years, as if strung together by an invisible filament, a cosmic thread that defied the chaos of natural formation. At first, it was subtle, almost imperceptible. But as the mapping grew more precise, the symmetry became undeniable. It was as though something immense and ancient had arranged them with intention, a hand too vast for the human mind to comprehend. Then came the distortions. The light from those galaxies wasn't just redshifted by distance. It was twisted, spiraled, stretched, as though time itself was buckling around them. Equations failed. Relativity offered no comfort. Even the speed of light, the one constant humanity trusted above all, seemed uncertain in that region. Data flickered with impossible variations, bending the rules of causality. In meeting rooms and midnight calls, physicists whispered of temporal shear zones and gravitational mirroring. But deep down, many feared something else, that Webb's gaze had pierced through a boundary not meant to be crossed. The telescope wasn't just observing the past. It might have been interacting with it, disturbing the fragile weave of spacetime with every photon captured. As more data streamed in, one phenomenon became clear. Each new image seemed to deepen the alignment, as if the universe itself were responding, adjusting, rearranging, noticing the watcher on the other side of time. The scientists stared at the growing pattern, that perfect, eerie curve stretching across the cosmic abyss. It looked almost deliberate. Some even saw a shape forming in the alignment, a curve bending back upon itself, like a reflection or a doorway. If time had a surface, Webb had just cracked it. Was the telescope truly seeing the dawn of our universe, or glimpsing into another one entirely? When the images first stunned the world, Scientists clung to one last refuge of reason. The data must be misread. But when Webb's spectrographs began to hum, translating ancient light into raw numbers, that fragile comfort shattered. Each spectral line, the fingerprints of elements scattered across the stars, told a story older than time itself. At such distances, the early universe should have been simple, a sea of hydrogen and helium, unshaped, unrefined. Yet, what Webb found was nothing short of heresy against the laws of cosmology. The hydrogen lines were bent, warped beyond known physics, as if light itself had aged differently there. More disturbing still, traces of heavy metals, carbon, iron, even gold, shimmered in the readings, their presence impossible. These were the products of countless generations of stars, born and dead over billions of years. But the galaxy's Webb observed existed when the cosmos was barely a child. It was as if Webb had caught the reflection of a universe that had lived a full lifetime before ours began. A realm where the cosmic clock had already run its course and then reset. The implications were terrifying. Either our understanding of creation was catastrophically wrong, or we were glimpsing a place that had no right to exist within our timeline. The analysis deepened. The spectra revealed strange energy emissions, rhythmic pulses, repeating with uncanny precision. Some researchers argued it was just cosmic interference, but others sensed intention in the pattern. Light, after all, can carry information, and this light was ancient beyond reason, whispering across the abyss as though carrying a message from a universe long forgotten. In conference halls around the world, silence replaced debate. Equations no longer fit. Theoretical models bent and snapped under the weight of impossible evidence. The cosmos was no longer a single unfolding story. It was layered, recursive, perhaps alive. Late one night, as the final readings scrolled across the monitors, one astrophysicist whispered what no one dared to say aloud. This light isn't from the past. It's from something before the beginning. What kind of cosmos could give birth to such ancient matter? At first, it appeared as nothing more than a flicker, a faint pulse at the heart of one of Webb's oldest and most distant galaxies. The light curve was irregular, then rhythmic, then perfect. When the data was enhanced, a shape emerged. Vast, geometric, eerily precise. Its symmetry was impossible to dismiss, not the chaotic beauty of a nebula or the scattered birth of a star cluster, but something ordered, constructed. The structure spanned light years, an intricate lattice of radiant matter orbiting a dark core, repeating in mathematical intervals. The radiation it emitted was no random flare of dying suns. It pulsed with deliberate rhythm, following ratios that mirrored prime sequences and harmonic intervals, the kind of patterns only intelligence could create. At first, the astrophysics community resisted the thought. They called it pareidolia, humanity's instinct to find meaning where none exists. But every new observation made the coincidence harder to defend. The fluctuations obeyed no natural model. The geometry remained stable, unmoved by galactic drift or entropy. Something had designed this, or at least left it behind. As Webb continued to gather data, the pulses began to shift, subtly, almost imperceptibly, as though the structure had noticed the observation. The intervals adjusted, forming new sequences that matched the telescope's scanning pattern. It was reacting. Panic spread through the analysis teams. Some theorized it was a remnant of an extinct civilization, the work of a species so ancient that even their ruins predated time as we knew it. Others whispered darker possibilities. That it wasn't a remnant at all, but a mechanism, still active, still functioning, perhaps even responsible for the creation of the galaxies surrounding it. And in the heart of that anomaly, amid the rhythmic glow, came bursts of radiation in precise intervals, numbers, patterns, messages, as if the architects had foreseen the day something would finally look their way. A creation older than light itself, and intelligent beyond measure. Could the universe's first light have been engineered? For weeks, the pulses from the anomalous structure had been dismissed as cosmic interference, a trick of distance, radiation, and hope. But then, amid the chaos of energy signatures, a young data analyst noticed something peculiar. A modulation so faint it hovered at the edge of detectability. It wasn't random. It repeated, at precise intervals, with uncanny consistency, a rhythm hidden beneath the noise. When the waveform was isolated, it revealed a pattern, a signal buried in the chaos of creation. The frequency was ancient, older than the stars themselves, yet perfectly stable. No known natural process could maintain such coherence over billions of years. The signal had been traveling since the dawn of everything, waiting. Secret teams formed in the shadows of observatories and government labs. Decoding began in silence, behind encrypted channels and sleepless nights. Mathematicians, linguists, and quantum theorists worked together, stripping away cosmic interference layer by layer, translating the radiation into data. What emerged was not random, it was structured, recursive, fractal, information woven into light. At first, it seemed like a message, but then the horror settled in. The transmission wasn't directed toward Earth. This trajectory, when traced backward, didn't point to our solar system or even our galaxy. It pointed toward the center of the observable universe, the cradle of existence, the point of the Big Bang itself. It wasn't speaking to us. It was speaking to the moment of creation. The realization sent waves of fear through the research community. If this signal had been emitted billions of years after the Big Bang yet targeted that singular moment, it meant one thing: whoever sent it understood how to bend time or existed outside of it. The light itself had been encoded as a temporal key, a message cast backward across the birth of reality. The scientists who uncovered the full structure of the signal fell silent. For in its final decoded form, it wasn't just a message, it was an instruction. An ancient transmission aimed at the origin of everything we know. What could communicate across the birth of time? In the wake of the signal's revelation, the scientific world fractured. The data made no sense, not within any known framework. Equations collapsed beneath their own contradictions. Constants refused to remain constant. The more they tried to reconcile the readings, the further reality seemed to slip from beneath their grasp. So, the physicists began to rebuild, fusing the language of relativity with the chaos of quantum mechanics, searching for an equation that could bind the impossible together. After weeks of sleepless nights, a small team in Geneva stumbled upon a solution, one that shouldn't have existed. Their model didn't just describe how the James Webb telescope observed ancient light. It suggested that the act of observation itself was interactive. Each photon Webb received wasn't a passive echo of the past. It was a connection, a two-way thread between now and the dawn of time. If true, every captured image was a disturbance, a ripple traveling backward, brushing against the earliest moments of creation. In trying to understand the universe, humanity had unknowingly begun to touch it. At first, the effect was subtle, microvariations in the background radiation, too small to notice. But then, inexplicable changes began to surface in the data. Whole constellations shifted by fractions of a degree. Redshift readings fluctuated as if galaxies themselves were moving in response. What had been static now behaved as if aware, adapting, adjusting, almost defending itself. The theorists whispered a single phrase: quantum entanglement of causality. If observation truly alters what is seen, then staring too deeply into the universe's origin could mean rewriting the foundation of existence itself. The telescope was no longer a window. It had become a bridge, and something on the other side might have started to cross it. One physicist, trembling before the final line of the equation, said what no one dared to admit. We are no longer looking into the past. The past is looking back. And as Webb continued to collect photons from the edge of time, the distortions deepened, slow, deliberate, almost alive. If observation changes reality, what happens when we stare too deep into creation itself? At first, it seemed like a glitch, stray data, corrupted packets slipping through the telescope's encrypted channels. But when engineers opened the files, the room fell silent. The images were not from any scheduled observation, not from any known coordinates. They had simply appeared. Webb had sent them on its own. What they showed was hauntingly familiar, constellations we knew by heart, but twisted, rearranged. Orion's belt bent at impossible angles. The Milky Way coiled like a serpent around a dark void where no star had ever existed. Every familiar pattern had been subtly, yet undeniably, altered, as though some cosmic mirror had warped the sky into an echo of itself. Then, one by one, observatories across the world began to go dark. Data feeds blinked out in eerie synchrony: Chile, Hawaii, the Arctic arrays, even orbital telescopes. At precisely the same moment, each system froze mid-transmission. The last frames they captured all showed the same thing: a faint, symmetrical pattern blooming across the background of space, something vast, geometrically perfect, and eerily alive. Meanwhile, Webb's data core began to hum. It transmitted one final sequence, unrequested, bypassing human command. Within the stream was an image unlike any other, a perfect reflection of the universe itself. Galaxies, nebulae, clusters, mirrored, reversed, and gazing back. It was not data from the past. It was response. The reflection wasn't random. It matched Webb's own scanning path, pixel for pixel, as though something beyond the veil had been tracing its movements, learning its gaze. And then came the final anomaly: the mirrored universe blinked. A pulse of light rippled through its structure, as if acknowledging that it had finally seen the observer. Scientists stared, breathless, as if the cosmos itself had opened its eyes for the first time, not in birth, but in awareness. For centuries, we believed we were explorers of the infinite. Now, it seemed the infinite had been waiting to be found. The screens dimmed, one by one, as the mirrored light faded into silence. What if the universe has always been aware of being observed? Then, without warning, the universe went silent. One moment, the James Webb Space Telescope was transmitting terabytes of data, humming with mechanical precision. The next, it was gone. Its signal dissolved into static, its golden mirrors drifting mute and blind in the abyss. Systems rebooted automatically, but no response came. Webb, humanity's most powerful eye into creation, had closed its gaze. Panic rippled through every control room. Engineers ran diagnostics, physicists combed through the final logs, but what they found defied explanation. The telescope hadn't failed, it had stopped transmitting by choice. The final system report showed no malfunction, only a single line of code, inserted by an unknown process: signal acknowledged. Days later, strange disturbances appeared in Earth's magnetosphere, faint distortions matching the same frequency Webb had detected at the edge of time. Satellite compasses wavered. Auroras flared at latitudes where they did not belong. It was as if the cosmos had whispered something too vast for our planet to hold, and the very field surrounding Earth shuddered beneath the weight of it. Then, just as abruptly, the distortions ceased. The world returned to its ordinary silence. But the scientists closest to the project, the few who had seen the decoded patterns in full, vanished from the public eye. Their names were erased from institutional records, their research sealed under classified directives. Official statements called it routine decommissioning. Unofficially, no one believed that. Rumors leaked, faint traces of a final transmission, hidden deep within the last data packet Webb ever sent. Pattern translated not in numbers, but in words. 6 of them. Simple, unmistakable. A final response to the gaze that had breached the